passionate ideas. Every expression here is strictly that of the person who gives it. Let us consciously and lovingly agree to disagree if it does not resonate with us. The topic today is the alchemical process from lead to lead, the lunar nodes, individuation, and tobacco. It will be my pleasure to present myself and Christopher Reynolds. We are both going to be speaking today. So quickly, just a short bio about Chris. He is a roving shaman. He is a retired French teacher who brought depth psychology, art, and music into the schools of Berea for 30 years. He, there's just so much I could say. He's a music songwriter. He's written over 20 albums and continues to perform. He brings in No Man Spoke into the homes. He's a peace walker and a pipe carrier, sacred pipe carrier. He works with Warriors Journey Homes, with sweat lodges, and helping vets return home from their trauma and their families. And he goes also all across the world with that peace pipe and takes that pipe to protest. And so he's someone that certainly, besides being the love of my life and my partner, he is someone that carries this so beautifully. So I'll welcome Chris up here. And then, do you want to say something about me or you want me to say it? No pressure. You don't have to. I can. All right.
Yeah. What has
what I wrote? No, I'm just kidding.
The University of Humans is what Raven has always spoken about her life. That on the outside looks like she's a salon owner and works with people being beautiful, but on the from the soul level, she's going to school and accompanies people through all parts of their lives, and always has walked with the people. So that's actually the creed of the Ursuline sisters, to walk with the people. So she speaks in the language of an Ursuline nun, actually. So except she's way more than that. So it's great to work together and bring really we're trying to bring the best of what we can to this. And so this is a work in progress. Hold it lightly. This is a guidelines.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you.
So I'm going to do a little.
You're going to start.
Yeah. Yep. We were talking about tobacco, and if you going to do anything to learn indigenous wisdom or teaching, the Lakota didn't say to do this, but the Ojibwe told me, get like pipe tobacco or cigarette tobacco and touch your finger to it and wrap it with red. That's also a Lakota teaching. Red because it's a sacred color, red because it represents life, red because it represents asking somebody to share their gift. And then I'm just nervous and I forgot how to tie a bow. So you would go like this, and then the person who has the gift that you're asking, you'll do this. So Deborah Michelle Ravenheart, Gypsy Shamaness, Dragon Speaker, would you bring your gifts today to the people so they can be happier and live a better life, so that children and grandchildren can have a better world than the one we grew up in? And then the person can say yes or no. And then both answers can be good, but that's how you ask somebody in a sacred way. When you're building a sweat lodge, you talk to the trees that you want to use that way. Or you talk to the stones that way. You talk to because it's about relationship and service to relationship. So I consider my life to be a continuation of Jesuit work. This is Father John William Stolzman in this book, Pipe and Christ. So he was meeting with the elders out at Pine Ridge and Rosebud, and he kept asking them, do your spirits know Christ? Do your spirits know Christ? And they said, well, why don't you ask them? You ask them. And so finally he's like, well, I realized I probably should ask them myself. So he asked them himself, which is probably in a ceremony called a Yuwipi, when the spirits come and they'll talk. So the answer was in Lakota, Mapia Namaka Ekta Sitomni, which translates roughly as spirit from the sky and the earth walking with the people. And so the elder named Fool's Crow said, you can learn our ways, but you can't become Lakota, but use our ways to remember your own. So when you offer somebody tobacco, you're thanking them for being born. Our way of thanking somebody for being born is a birth chart. So this is what Stoltzman didn't know, but I was able to like have my life. In a birth chart, who you are is the sun. And there's a saying that the sun is the secret to sanity. In the 12-step program, they say the greatest insanity is wanting to be somebody else. Same teaching, to be yourself. So the Lakota spirits didn't say, Jesus Christ is the king of the whole universe. He's going to control everything and come back at the end of the world. He didn't say that. They said, you know, it's here from the skies helping us. So the Christ message then would be a message that would integrate into traditions that already exist. So what back in the 100s and 150s, the people who did astrology reflected on this. Where does the Christ fit? Well, the teaching of Christ is everybody's a Christ. Everybody's son then should say Christ. So they worked out the name Jesus so it would be part of the numbers associated with the sun. These are all multiples of 37. So it's amazing. 37 gives you numbers like 111, 222, 333, 444, 555. All those triples, those are all related to the sun. And so when you give someone a birth chart, you're saying, I honor your birth. You are a sacred being. I honor the Christ in you. It doesn't mean you're done. You still have your life to live, to bring it out. So that's what I'd like to say about those two things. So the idea of the North and South Node is connected to our astrology, and the tobacco, they say the same thing. Thank you for your birth. Individuation is Jung's term for becoming yourself. And alchemy for us is the process of inner transformation. Something out there isn't going to change us. We have to work on us. It's our job. There you go.
Thank you.
It's an honor to welcome the speech that's going to happen. This is a major life event for her to tell this story today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for the tobacco and honoring of my life that I've lived and walked. And oh, thank you. I love it. All right, I'm done. That's it. Yay. All right, we can dance. We can have fun. So preparing. Thank you, Diane. I love you too. I love all of you. I love this church so much, and it's such a big part of my journey. So preparing for this, it came off the heels of the talk that we had all participated in together about the trees and talking about tobacco, and it got Chris and I having a conversation about what tobacco means and how it honors someone's life, and then we're talking about the our birth charts and individuation and what it means to be alive, what it means to be embodied in this life, fully present, and the journey that is life, that we all know is not easy. I mean, I many of you know, there were several years my life was pretty hard, and that was even after I found the church, and they're not even talking about what happened before. I mean, I'm going to go into a little bit, but there were times I sat in here during the service and just cried, and you all held me, and you held me in love, and I just wanted right now, right off the bat, offer you energetic tobacco and just tell me that I am so grateful for each and every one of you that are here today and showing up, and the courage to be born. And that is it. It takes courage to be born into a world where we're at today. It takes courage, I think, anytime. We talk about the world. Oh, it's so bad right now. And sometimes I think, I'm like, really? Is it that bad? We got running water. I can flush the toilet. I can take a shower anytime I want. I got food. And I think about the struggles that have gone on the hundreds of years that people have been on the earth. And I'm like, I don't have to light a fire in the snow to heat up my tea. I can just flip a switch on on my little, water thing that I have at home. And so, I think anytime we're born, though, we are born, and we have to understand that, that is part of life. And that's what we're going to go into today a little bit with me sharing my story. And we talk about the lunar nodes. And that was one gift that Chris really brought into my life when we started seeing one another, is for my birthday last year, he gifted me a reading of my birth chart. And I had some readings done, but I hadn't had a full in-depth reading. And he also brought the gift of knowledge of the nodes, the lunar nodes of the moon. And in studying that and realizing at my birth, and where the lunar nodes are right now, the Aries is in the north node, and Libra, or the lunar node is in Libra, and the south node, that's my transit. So it's interesting that and it's not really, when you step back and look over life, how the patterns, the rhythms of our life continue to repeat. So I am, besides my birth, if we're not talking about the birth, we could, that this would be the fourth time that I'm coming through, my birth being the first time, the second time was in 1987, the third time was in 2004, and then now. And this transit goes until January 2025. So just going back and starting, I found this quote in preparing for this talk. Well, first, let me just explain. The lunar nodes are two orbital nodes. They are not planets or anything. They're orbital nodes, points in the sky, at which the orbit of the moon intercepts the ecliptic. And we can go into a little bit more of that on another day, but that's just a little bit of an understanding. It's not some little planet or it's a spot in the sky where this happens. So understanding the nodes is a key to understanding a person's individual path. I found this quote by William Wordsworth. It says, "Our birth is but a sleep and a forgetting. The soul that rises with us, our life star, hath had elsewhere its setting, and cometh from afar, not entire forgetting, and not in utter nakedness, but trailing clouds of glory from which we come." And there's more to this poem, but that really stood out for me, and I found that in this North Node of Astrology book, and I'm going to read a little bit more from what she has to say in a little bit. But students of Plato, and Plato himself also dissected this poem, and what they came to understand is that our soul already exists before our birth. And that's the one thing with the North Node. The North Node is where we're going in this lifetime. The South Node is where we've experienced in other lifetimes, the experiences we are bringing into this life to work on. And so the North Node is our trajectory. My birth, it's so interesting, because this is another thing that's come up this past year, is my mom was in labor with me for 28 hours. It was a hard labor. My grandfather told her finally, if you don't have this baby by 7:30 in the morning, I got to go to work. I was born at 7:21 a.m. It was recorded, and there's no record of it because it was at an Air Force base in Missouri that's no longer there, that I was crying in the womb before I was born. And for years and years and years, actually up until this last year, I used to say I still believe that. My soul was negotiating my contract. I was like, wait, I need another revision. Hold on, wait, no, let's not do that. Do we have to put that in there? No, wait, do I have to live that? And so for that 24-hour labor, I was constantly renegotiating. And then at the end, I was like, no, before I was even born, because the time was up. My grandpa had put a deadline on it, and here I was. Yeah, and it's still a funny story, because I still believe that in a big, I do believe that a lot. But the way I'm telling it differently today is, though, from a perspective of, I'm in a few weeks I'll be turning 55. And I didn't expect to live. In fact, my mother and grandmother had bets I wouldn't make it to 23. That's how tragic. I had an event that happened that just really shifted. And that happened in the nodal transit of Aries and the North Node, and Libra in the South. So the nodal axis, this is a quote by Pam Gregory, and she's an astrologer. I got that out of this book called How to Co-Create Using the Secret Language of the Universe. The nodal axis represents the potential of your soul's evolution. This access forms your treasure trove. This is where your sense of purpose and fulfillment lies. It not only explains the skills, talents, and abilities that which you entered this life, but why you came into this life. For many astrologers, the nodal axis represents the soul contract which you came here to do in this lifetime. Your nodal axis is not a prescription in terms of actual career and work, but qualities that need to be expressed in your life. So the nodal axis, and I'm just speaking from my lane, from my life, the nodal axis with the Aries and the North Node, which we are also in, when these are, it's not only personal, which we all know, everything that happens on the micro happens on the macro, on the outside and on the inside. So it's also collective. So right now, this nodal axis that I'm talking about with Aries and the North Node and Libra and the South Node is all about staying in the individualization, it being on your individual path, focus on your own healing, but also healing relationships. South Node in Libra is all about relationships and finding that partnership and relationship. I grew in a household where my mother and grandmother were very codependent. They were on the phone with each other like every 5 minutes. And when I was 7, I looked at my mom. I'm like, I'm not doing any of this. She's like, well, what's any of this? I'm like, I'm not calling you 50 times a day. I'm not having kids. I'm not getting married. I'm not doing any of what you're doing. I was just like, hell no, I didn't. I knew. So, at 7, I knew about my Aries North Node and my Libra South Node, but I didn't know about it yet, until that. But I was like, I'm not doing any of that. So I really went on a path, and we moved around a lot when I was growing up. And so I was changing schools. So I was constantly having these relationships about trying to be an individual in places that I didn't know anyone, and trying to create relationships. And so this has been just this huge theme in my life about trying to create relationships. Being the new girl at a new school seems like it would be fun, but it's not. Girls hate you, the guys love you and want to get to know you, and it's just this imbalance, and it's really hard when you're picking up and moving all the time. And my mom, I'd say she practiced what was called geographical cures. She didn't know how to deal with her own grief and her pain, so we would get up and move and start all over, and it'd be great and fine for about 4, 5, 6 months while the excitement was there. But eventually that pain and grief and sorrow would come knocking on the door, and she would go back down. She was a manic depressant at times. Sometimes I wonder if she wasn't bipolar. So I was dealing with that and living with that. And so all I wanted to do was work. I started working in restaurants. I loved working in restaurants. I loved the fast pace of it. I loved being with people. I loved the partying afterwards. I just loved it all. So that's part of my life. And up till 1986 to 87 was when the North Node went back into Aries and the South Node in Libra. It's an 18.6 month cycle, 18 years, 6 month cycle. In 1987, I had one of the most tragic events that could happen in a person's life. And I was talking to Chris about this morning. One of the things too that would happen in my life, it was like up until this point too, and even after, it's like things would be really good. And then boom, something would happen, a tragic event, something would happen, and things would get really bad. So it was like this constant up and down roller coaster. And like I said, I was working at restaurants. I was a corporate trainer for Shoney's, going in and opening stores, but I also was really excited to be on the day shift. And I just got shifted to the day shift that week. And I had this woman with her 2 babies come walking into the salon or to the restaurant when I was close to getting off work, and it was like 93 degrees in Missouri. It gets hot even in September. And this day I told her, just sit down and wait, I'll give you a ride home. Well, I gave her a ride home, and I missed the turn she told me to take first. And I ended up on a street called Walnut Street. And I slowed down when I saw these kids playing in the street. And before I knew it, a little boy ran out in front of my car. He didn't survive. That happened with this transit. So for then, I had this in my life growing up. Anytime there was a lot of tragedy in the family, and even the outside family, cousins and things. when anything would happen, it's God's will. If you don't get more than you can handle, you're going to be fine. You'll just, and my mom didn't know how to deal with grief. She didn't know how to help me. No one knew how to help me. So I self-medicated. I refused treatment. And it wasn't until this year when I recently, someone with mental illness that started when she was young, was medicated, heavily medicated, and just passed away, that I realized it's probably a good thing I didn't, because they would have put me on medications. They would have locked me up because I was in that state. But I didn't know that until today, until like this past couple of weeks, that I finally realized it's probably a good thing that I ran away from that and just really tried to focus on work and bury my problem and bury my pain. Carl Jung has a quote that says, when an inner situation is not made conscious, it happens outside as fate. Another thing that came up when that accident happened is the year before, a friend of mine's sister had cancer, and he told me that she would always go around saying, keep your face to the sun so you can't see the shadows, to keep herself in alignment to the sun and not, seeing the pain and stuff. So that was one thing I carried with me too. I was just constantly trying to focus on out there, focus on, like you're reading with the sun behind you. I didn't take the time to turn around and look at my shadows and deal with what was going on inside. So fast forward, I'm dealing with life. I moved to Ohio to escape. I found a man that would bring me here, and consequently as a fireman, a rescuer. It's interesting how that pattern keeps coming up. I moved to Ohio, moved 800 miles away from my mom, so I don't end up in that codependent relationship. Doing what I need to do. I started going to do hair. I did get sober at one point and was sober in 98 after my grandmother passed, was sober almost 6 years, almost 7 years. And then I stopped going to meetings and doing what I needed to do. I was focusing on hair. So when the transits of Aries North Node, Libra South Node came around again in 2004, I was doing really well at a salon called John Roberts. I was winning awards. I was winning contests. I'm doing great. My relationship at home with my husband isn't so well. Somewhere along the line, I got the idea to pick back up drinking. So I relapsed during that transit. I relapsed in 2004, and that relapse, and I even knew before I picked up that drink that I looked at it for 45 minutes before I even took that drink. I knew that it was going to change my life, and it did. And in 2009, speaking of the song 1031, in 2009, I tried to commit suicide in February 2009. It was a few days after my 40th birthday. I had just gotten the end of the rope, divorced from that husband. I was jumped into another relationship, without even taking time in between, because I was just out of control with my drinking and drugging. I woke up, and you ask about the song 1031, I'll tell a quick story. I woke up, and when I did wake up from that suicide attempt, there was a big clock on the wall that was 10:30, and it was 10:30, and I was like, all right. I didn't know if it was morning or night, but I knew I was still alive, and I knew I was alive for a reason. I had to find out a way to live. So the salon I was at, there was a lot of drinking and drugging, so I had to leave. And I decided in 2009, I just went through the divorce, had a little bit of money from the divorce, and decided to open my own salon. And the name of it was Ignite with Fire. Ignite Hair Salon. And what got downloaded immediately with that was a motto that I had painted on the wall and had on all the cards and things, but I still thought it was about the salon. I didn't realize it was about my journey in this life. But it was what ignites your passion, what ignites your individuality, and what ignites your soul. Had it everywhere. 2011, my dad dies. I lost a cat at 13 years. My relationship was not good because I haven't done the work, right? So in 2013, Ignite Hair Salon, which was very well. I had 5 girls under me. Life's going good. I'm making money. It's busy. It's fast. I'm stressed out because I haven't dealt with my grief. I haven't dealt with inner stuff. And all of this came crashing and burning down. Not literally, the salon didn't catch on fire, but it did. Everybody ended up leaving. I ended up finding myself up there by myself. And now I really had to look at what was going on within me. I learned that I had unprocessed grief. I had fear of responsibility. I had deep-rooted belief in lack and unworthiness. unable to accept abundance and prosperity, my own narcissism. This is a funny story. That Halloween, before all this came burning down, we had done a pumpkin decorating contest, and I thought mine was cute. I had tape, and I was like, oh, so I put me all over this pumpkin. I spray painted it, pulled the tape off. I'm like, it's a narcissistic pumpkin. Not even realizing till years later when I'm journaling, I was like, son of a bitch, that pumpkin was me sitting up there just looking right at me, you know. I was narcissistic, but it was because of my trauma and my shame and my pain and everything that I was living in that state of narcissism, and I forgot how to be grateful. I had relationship imbalances, things weren't going well. So I knew at that time, when all of that was happening, besides focusing on gratitude, I had to learn to face my shadow. And I started doing a lot of journaling. I started seeking help. I was trying to stay sober. I started going back to meetings. I started just really facing that shadow. And like I was telling Vicki, she brought up trees earlier, that the house I had in Hemlock Hills had 2 huge hemlock pines. And when I looked it up later, they help you with your shadow work. And I sat under those trees in that yard, and it was just really, and there's a lot more to that story, but we don't have time to go into all that. But I found this quote that I thought was incredible, and it really helps with what I'm talking about. So, life purpose evolves as we find meaning in whatever we do. And we do this by bringing to consciousness what we have kept in and unconscious in our shadow. This term shadow is about all of those very human things we disown or do not know, things we tend to not see or that we dislike, and all those things we tend to project upon others. Yet this shadow also holds the gold, those noble tendencies and talented parts of ourselves that we have been blind to see. In astrology, we find this by inquiring into the nodes. It is humbling work to look at our self node, to look into our past life story and the shadow. It is not for the faint of heart or for those who want to see themselves righteously or piously. Looking at one's unfinished business is a humbling experience. And daring to act on the suggestion of the North Node isn't comfortable at first. It usually feels unfamiliar as well. And yet, through this integrating process that we glimpse the possibilities of a fuller life. Found this letter also by Carl Jung, had written a friend in 1945 who was struggling with her life and conflicts and things. And she wrote to this friend of his, "Dear Frau Frobe, there can be no resolution, only patient endurance of the opposites which ultimately spring from our own nature. You yourself are a conflict that rages in itself and against itself in order to melt its incapable substances, the male and the female in the fire of suffering, and thus create that form which is the goal of life. Everyone goes through this meal consciously or unconsciously, voluntarily or forcibly. We are crucified between the opposites and delivered up to torture until the reconciling third takes place. Do not doubt the righteousness of the two sides within you, and let whatever may happen, happen. The apparently unenduring conflict is proof of the righteousness of your life. A life without inner contradiction is either half a life or else a life in the beyond, which is destined only for angels. But God loves humans more than angels." Carl Jung said the third part of attending to the soul is about enduring action, the willingness to withstand the tension of opposites, the tension of holding the opposing voices in our head, and not to break the alchemical vessel from a lack of attention or self-sabotage. We need to hold ourselves gently so that we may transmute the lead, the wounded parts of the ego, the wounded parts of ourselves, into the gold of insight and actions. We take the lessons of the shadow and then turn them into our lead, our story, with our soul as the author. So thinking about that, doing the shadow work I was doing in 2015, I found sweat lodges. I found the Church of the Angels. I started following spirit, listening to the trees, spending more times in the trees. I started hiking in the West Woods. I found an angel there that I sat with a lot in the woods and the trees. And I just really started following my spirit. So it brings me here today to this place, this time, this energy where now these nodes, I can recognize the pattern and they're in the same place, but I don't have to do the same thing today. I don't have to sabotage my life today. I don't have to be the one suffering. I don't have to play the victim anymore. I don't have to drink. I don't have to drug. I don't have to do any of that to medicate myself because I have found a life that's not perfect. Not perfect at all. I have ups and downs. I just had to move from a salon because they brought in a couple of people and it turned into this party salon. And I'm like, no, I don't want to be in that. But that's me standing in my truth, setting boundaries. No, I can make a different choice. And you can too. And I know some of your journeys and I know some of the suffering and I know some of the pain that has gone on. And I'm just letting you know that thank you for your birth. Thank you for being here because it does change and it will change. And if we can, I know from my own life, just by looking at the patterns of my life and recognizing when these things come up. And I know there's more to a chart than just the North Node and the South Node, but for me, it just was highly significant that these things happened at these times of my life. And today I can make a different choice. Stephen Forrest said, the North Node, the homeward path, is where the answers lie. Like the North Star, it guides us across life's dark oceans, revealing the fresh path of energy, healing, breakthrough, and evolution. Understanding of it is perhaps the single most precious catalyst astrology can provide for anyone. The purpose of our life, your life, the true productivity of the soul's evolution lives in the study and living in the North Node. 1031. Was my mom passed away and I knew I had to learn how to deal with grief, and that was in 2021. And I took a long time to really process grief and learn how to work with it and learn how to sit with her and say, what do you want to teach me? What do you want to show me? And then I woke up on Mother's Day, the year so after she had passed, not the first Mother's Day because I was numb with grief, but the second Mother's Day. And I heard my mom's voice, all I ever wanted was for you to be happy. And so I started finding out what made me happy. I didn't know what made me happy. I started going to drum circles and showing up and saying yes and doing this and doing that and going to things that really made me happy. I started journeying and meditating more, and I started spending time in the woods and with friends and laughing. And I just started really doing that. And it cost me financially, but that's okay. I don't care. It's only money. So on Labor Day in 2022, I was at a party up at the lake, this beautiful big house. I called it Neverland. It was this party. You were there, Lydia, I remember. Yeah. And in the evening, we're dancing, and they had a clock in there, and I was dancing, and I looked at the clock, and the clock was set for 10:31. And I was like, it's not 10:31. It was only 9:21 when I looked at my phone. But I knew in that moment when I saw that clock set for 10:31 that my life had shifted. I didn't have to live in that place that I was that morning when I woke up and saw that clock that said 10:30. I was now in a new realm, in a new place of possibility. And within a few weeks, I asked this gentleman out, and and life has been pretty good since then. So here we are today. And in the workshop, we'll go deeper in that, look at your South Node, your North Node. We'll sing songs together and things like that. So hopefully you can stay and join us. And hopefully you enjoyed this talk and sharing my story. And I just want to know I love each and every one of you. My divine love and light sees the divine love and light within all of you. Thank you for spending time with me. Enough. Okay. Does anybody have anything you want to talk about? Everybody good? Yeah. Emery?
First of all, I want to thank you for being born.
Thank you.
You are such a gift to all of us. Just seeing you today, saying that you were nervous when you came up, but then seeing that transformation once you started speaking your soul, it just is, in your words, you ignited. And just, you have so much information and just sharing all your life experiences with us, I think is such a testament to what you bring to this world. So many thanks to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. right. You guys want to sing? Is that what we're